Absolute justice would be an apology to this city that he smeared, admitting what he did, and then be man enough to offer what he should offer up in terms of all the resources that were put into this.
So as journalists and politicians raced to see who could say the most embarrassingly credulous things about Jussie Smollett's obvious hate hoax, the police did their jobs. They stayed calm, they made no assumptions, they investigated it thoroughly, and they discovered something shocking. And for that, they're being attacked. Just moments ago, Smollett's attorney released a statement saying this, quote, "Mr. Smollett is a young man of impeccable character and integrity who fiercely and solemnly maintains his innocence and feels betrayed by a system that apparently wants to skip due process and proceed directly to sentencing." Dan Bongino is a former officer with the NYPD, and he joins us tonight. So, Dan, you've watched this from beginning until now, and it's still unfolding. Sure. But what are the main conclusions you're drawing from what you've seen?
Well, Tucker, you know, it's amazing we've spent all this money in this country on an education system that claims to teach, critical thinking, right?
Yeah.
But if you thought critically about this case from the beginning, you would have never jumped to the conclusion. And, listen, I spent a lot of time with the Secret Service and the NYPD, but you don't have to be a law enforcement officer to have seen the red flags in the case, Tucker. First, if you're attacked like this violently at night, who doesn't turn over their police records to immediately clear themselves and try to get the actual bad guys? It just didn't make sense. And that statement you just read, is outrageous. He's not entitled to due process. Tucker, he was given every single benefit by the media, by everyone else. The benefits, by the way, you and I would have been questioned about this vigorously from the beginning. And now he's claiming somehow that he's a martyr in this? Listen, of course you're presumed innocent. I get that. But that's a ridiculous statement to try to paint yourself as a martyr when you haven't even cooperated with the police from the beginning. It's absurd.
At some point, he's going to put the media in a pretty tough spot. If he continues to deny this and say that he's once again the victims of yet another persecution or whatever, can Don Lemon sit there on CNN and not defend him?
At some point with these kids on Twitter, they say you got to take the L. At some point, you got to take the loss. Yeah. Tucker, it's binary at this point, is it not? They have these two brothers, these people that they're questioning, apparently involved in this. They're either the attackers or they're not. If they're cooperating and they've been released, what does that say to you as someone who thinks in common sense terms? They're either the attackers or they're not. They've been released. Clearly, there's something wrong with this case, and it appears that when you take it all and you look at it, that Smollett's the guy who's not been clear, open, and honest here.
I just don't understand how we're sort of eliding over what this guy really did, which is use racial stereotypes to attack fellow Americans, and no one's kind of saying that. I'm not really sure why.
Right. It's not just that he lied. It's that he took it to the next level. He added a bunch of, let's call them aggravating factors, Tucker. Oh, they were wearing MAGA hats, and they screamed, "This is MAGA country." And then they put a noose, one of the most abhorrent symbols of a troubled time in American history. It's all these aggravating things he threw on top as if being attacked and claiming it was Trump supporters wasn't bad enough, Tucker. We got to put bleach in it and a noose, and they screamed it's MAGA country. It really speaks to, if this didn't happen, and this is all a hoax, a level of serious depravity. This guy could need some serious help.
So I just want to do super quick a kind of check on your sensibility about all this. So you work in journalism. Robin Roberts over at ABC, quote, News works in journalism. She heard Jussie Smollett's story, and she concluded it was, quote, beautiful. Was there ever a moment when you heard his story and you thought to yourself, that's beautiful?
No, I thought it's questionable. But Robin Roberts needed that story to be true and wanted it to be true. And it's clear from the questioning. There was not one critical question asked of a guy who had a very suspect story. It's a real shame, and it's a stain on journalism.
Yeah, that's nicely put. Dan Bongino, great to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you too, Tucker. See you next week.
Well, after his court hearing today, Jussie Smollett returned to work at the show Empire. According to reports, Smollett kept crew waiting for at least 30 minutes in order to film his scene. This was today. When he arrived, he begged the crew and his fellow actors to believe him, to believe in his innocence. He said this, quote, "I would never do this to any of you. You are my family. I swear to God, I did not do this, end quote. Well, the press didn't need that kind of begging to believe Jussie Smollett. Virtually everyone in the press was ready to believe him anyway.
What we do know is that racism is alive and well in this country. There is real evidence of people who have done these crimes who cite that the president has inspired them.
The fact that they reportedly said this is MAGA country adds to sort of the atmosphere of menace that African Americans in particular and people of color in general have felt since the advent of the Trump administration.
He said his attackers hurled racial and homophobic slurs at him. And this is America in 2019.
So there are a lot of dumb, credulous people in the media. Chadwick Moore is not one of them. He was not fooled. He predicted the outcome of the Smollett case more than 2 weeks ago, and Dallas was attacked for it, but joins us now for a well-deserved, I don't want to call it a victory lap, but you were right, and we want to acknowledge that you were. Chadwick Moore, great to see you. So you looked at this story, looked at the facts, and you didn't buy it.
I didn't buy it from the first sentence of the first report that I read. And it wasn't even just MAGA country, which made me laugh out loud. And I think a lot of people, because what Trump supporter would say that, everyone knew that was fake.
Exactly.
My first question when I read the story was, I thought, what was the weather last night in Chicago? Looked it up, and it was -20 with the wind chill. That was the first thing that tipped me off that, like, something isn't right here. Now, we expect our that is the most simple question to ask. Yeah. We expect our journalists to be able to, that would be the most basic thing I would look up. None of them did it. And now what we see with the media is they are legitimately gaslighting the American public and saying, no, we handled this very, very well. We were very fair. They're saying a lot of celebrities and activists on Twitter ran with it, and you're confusing us with them. No, you can certifiably look up Washington Post, ABC News, NBC News, the Associated Press, The Guardian. You can go on forever. They all ran with the story. They all never said alleged attack. They never said claims. They said he was definitively attacked. Now they're circling their wagons, and now they are defending one another. I've never seen a journalist ever have true remorse, ever go through a period of, or very rarely, a period of self-reflection. And we're not going to see it here. Brian Stelter over at CNN is sort of leading the charge with this. It's about they're continuing to protect their own, protect their industry, and they just simply do not care about the truth. They do not care about being anything but activists at this point.
No, I think that's absolutely right. What's interesting is that there doesn't seem to be any penalty in this deeply corrupt business of journalism for getting it wrong in one direction. But if you had come out in public 2 weeks ago, I had doubts myself about this story. It seemed obviously like there were at least holes in it. I was afraid to express those doubts in public. It's not worth it, actually. There would have been massive penalty for doubting this in public, and yet isn't our job supposed to be skepticism?
Exactly. And I sort of thought the same thing. I said, if I'm wrong, this could really be a big hit to my career. Yeah. I was just so convinced I wasn't. Nothing about it made sense. Meanwhile, at the time when a few brave people were actually expressing skepticism, they were called conspiracy theorists by the media. They were maligned and they were treated like kooks. And it turns out they were right all along. The media will just move on. They don't care. I mean, they're really the propagators of all of this. They are the reason why Jussie Smollett felt like he could get away with this, because he knew they would be on his side, because they've created this fake narrative of armies of racist Trump supporters marching around and assaulting people. So why would he think that he wouldn't get away with it?
No, it's a good point. And you of all people know what it's like to be inside journalism and take a view that is not considered acceptable. You came out in favor of Donald Trump and had people basically try to destroy your life.
Exactly, and that a lot of happened. We just saw recently that reporter, I believe she was from CBS News, who came out and
Laura Logan.
Yes, that's right, and deflected. And there's another case recently. It's so rare to see this, but another case, I believe it was an NPR chief who did a similar thing. It's almost like when these journalists actually seek out the truth and actually try to get to know these boogeymen, Trump supporters, they almost seem to always deflect afterwards, and they sort of tend to see the horrors that are happening in their industry. You know, journalists they couldn't be more disconnected. I think that the Democrat politicians who ran with this story from day one are genuinely corrupt, and they're smart enough to see the holes in it.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and the journalists who ran with it, some I'm sure, but I think it was mainly a case of profound stupidity. Well,
that's not reassuring. You know why? It's because all the smart kids go into finance. I don't think any our homegrown geniuses are rushing to the New York Times anymore. Yeah. Chadwick Moore, great to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.